All right, welcome back to the Elephant Room. We are going to talk multi-site in this discussion. Let me clarify, when we're talking about multi-site, if you want to learn more, you go to leadnet.org. Leadership Network, particularly under Warren Bird, has done the preponderance of real investigative research about multi-site. And here, there are a few ways as well to do multi-site. There's a live preacher rotating between locations, kind of like the old Methodist circuit rider. There can be a live preaching team, so it's essentially a network of churches with a preacher at each location. There can also be a video, which tends to be the most controversial aspect of the multi-site movement, where a preacher is live in one location and via video in another. And then also there are various combination approaches that combine these various ways of delivering the sermon. At present, in the United States, there are more multi-site churches than there are megachurches. There are roughly 2,000 megachurches. There are roughly 3,000 multi-site churches. And so this is a very fast growing phenomena and trend. And most of the largest churches in America, in fact, on the 100 largest list, almost every single church on that list is doing multi-site. Almost every single one. As well, we have seen it cross over into various cultures and communities, and even churches that have primary ethnic makeup that is non-Anglo. This is also shocking as someone who's really involved in church planning through Acts 29. They have a 90% success rate. Traditional church planting is over a 50% failure rate. Multi-site is a 90% success rate. And according to a Leadership Network survey, 79% of churches doing multi-site report that their percentage of volunteers has greatly increased. And so let me do this before we get started. Pastor James, how many sites do you have?
6.
6 locations.
Soon to be 8.
Soon to be 8. We'll make it 8.
Prophetically speaking.
Prophetically speaking. Pastor Greg?
3 for us.
3 for you. David?
1.
1. But it's a great one. Are you thinking about doing multi-site?
No.
It depends on this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk.
We'll ask you in a half an hour. We should have put you up here to fight with these guys. Pastor Stephen?
4.
4. Pastor Matt?
3.
3.
5.
5. We're at 10, pregnant with a few. So that's a lot. You want to do the math? We should let Chandler do it.
You don't want me to do the math.
Okay, I got to take your shoes off. Okay, it's 11, 12, 16, 21.
26
20.
plus yours, 10 is 36.
Okay,
That
lot.
was the 760 right there, by the way. Bam, 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 total.
24. It was 24. It was 24. So we're 24 sites represented here. So that being the case, multi-site. Why did you go multi-site?
Everybody else was doing it.
That's like your quote, multi-site works.
Yeah.
I really had a heart. The way ours started is we were in Anderson. The city of Anderson has 24,000 people in it. The entire county has 170,000.
Okay, now say this again. How big is your town?
23,000.
And how many are in your church?
We have roughly, Anderson campus, 7,000 to 8,000 come every week.
Wow.
So that's...
So you can't go to the grocery store.
I can, but I have 72 conversations. Well, and it's great. It's great, unless I just want some Tic Tacs, man. Please.
24,000 people, they're only coming in for supplies every other week or something like that, right? I know that works.
Exactly. Like we got the horse buggy and but Greenville is the county next to us. It's one of the largest cities in the state. We started noticing a lot of people coming from Greenville. And they would come to Anderson, and one of the comments they would make is, we love this church, but our unchurched friends aren't willing to drive 30 minutes. And you can say whatever you want to about the unchurched community, but instead of screaming at them, we should probably do whatever it takes to go reach them. And so the idea for multi-site for us came out of, well, if there's a lot of unchurched people in Greenville, and we did the research, and there were more unchurched people in Greenville than there actually was in Anderson, we said, let's just go, because we had heard of Craig Rochelle, and we knew Greg Surratt, and we had seen, hey, this works. I think it might work, and so let's give it a shot. And so in 2008, we opened up a campus, and that campus opened with 1,700 people. So we were like, hey, we might have hit something there.
Multi-site works.
Multi-site works, yeah. And so what we discovered was, people said, I don't want to go see a video. Once you come one time, that argument goes away. You're like, you just don't use that anymore.
You know what's weird too is, for those who get saved in a multi-site church, we're now hearing that a live preacher is unusual for them because that's not what they're accustomed to.
Well, I've gone to these campuses on just a couple of occasions, and I stood in the lobby of one campus, and people walked right by me to talk to the campus pastor. And if they did walk by me, it was like...
Yeah, but that's South Carolina. That's just
To be fair. I mean, we're aggressive. We did start the Civil War. I mean, we are an aggressive bunch, but I mean... It was...
boldly going in the wrong direction.
Exactly. So, but the reason we did multi-site wasn't to be like, hey, okay, Craig Rochelle did it, so let's go do it. Or we were like, man, there's people in Greenville that need to hear the gospel, and let's just...
So your primary motivations, evangelism?
Yes.
Pragmatism.
Well,
people need Jesus, it works.
And I will agree with the statements that at multi-site campuses, we see more people volunteering. We see more people plugging. I mean, we all those statistics you shared, I mean, are true. I mean.
Okay, Matt, why did you go multi-site? Because
I was slow.
But you were kind of a Bible teaching. I mean, I love you. I've known you for years. Baptist guy. You're all about making sure the church is not just a conference that meets 52 weeks a year, but is really. You said some things like, that were fairly negative toward multi-site, and now you have multi-site. So explain that hypocrisy.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, well, first and foremost, I'm a hypocrite. Well, here's our progression. We were at 6 services, turning away from all 6 of those services.
You were preaching them all?
Yes.
That's tiring. I have noticed that.
Yeah, it's a bit exhausting. So because this happened when you were down.
I'll tell the story.
Wall.
I came down to do boot camp. Matt went to bed and woke up 8 days later.
Yeah.
8 days late. I was like, where's Matt? He's in bed. Next day, where's Matt? Matt is in bed. The next day, where's Matt? Matt is still in bed. Is Lauren with him? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? No, he's tired. No kidding.
So we're at, are you done?
Perhaps.
So we kind of hit that wall. We know this isn't going to work. I didn't want to build the monster, man. In my context in Dallas, I just didn't want to build the monster, man.
Okay, explain the monster. Is this like a sand volleyball court?
Yes.
And a backup one?
And you get your kid by having your retina scan. They shoot him out of a tube, holding your favorite latte right into your arms. I didn't want to build that. And I'll say this. I don't look at those places in Dallas and think they've done something wrong. I just think they've done it. And so people who are attracted to that real attraction-based model, it's there. So back to Furtick's point earlier today when he's going, hey man, there's a church on every. We don't have to be for everybody. We're trying to do this. Well, I can look at the landscape in Dallas and go, double-decker basketball court encased in glass, rock wall, skate park. We don't need to spend our money there trying to attract to reach. That's not where we need to spend our money. And so I didn't want to build a monster. I didn't want to spend some numbers from Dallas, legitimate numbers. 138 million, 150 million. All right.
American dollars?
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it'd be worse if it was euros, right? But in the end, American dollars on a building that, for the most part, is going to sit empty. Or then they're going to have to fill it with programming. And so all of that to reach people with Christ, yes and amen. I'm not trying to say they're wrong. I'm saying I didn't want to do it. Didn't feel called to it with a clean conscience. Didn't feel like I could do it. And so then in the end, I fly up to Seattle. You asked me about video. I said that I thought it was a bit cult of personality, and you laughed at me and said like the Village like your personality and playing into the Village now. And so we went back and we talked about it. Went out and hung out with Larry Osborne, and then we took our 2 Sunday night services and we made those 2 Sunday night services video. And really the question we ask is, are we willing to lose 1,400 people over this decision? And for longevity and health, we said, yeah, we are. And went to video, and it worked. And multi-site works. Yeah. And so, I mean, literally everybody giggled when the video started, and then 15 minutes in, I said, what's that word? And everybody responded, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is not going to solve anything. So to get to multi-site a lot quicker than I'm getting there, we hit the wall with that video. All our services were maxing out again, and so we began. The church started 8 to 10 weeks of prayer and fasting. In the middle of all that, we were approached by a church in Denton, which is 20 minutes north of us, Grace Temple Baptist. They were their numbers were down, about taking that campus and owning it. And that was right after week 2 when we had prayed, do this in such a way that nobody can get credit for. We can't teach anybody else how to do it. We just have to say, God heard this and answered this prayer. And so I went to that meeting with Lan Level, who was the pastor there at the time, still on staff with us at that campus. But he began to just kind of say, what do you think about this thing coming together? And I was even then going, man, I don't know. I just think that's not going to solve anything. I'm going to have the same problem in 2 locations. I'm going to have, turn away people there, turn away people here. It doesn't really solve anything. But I started in the middle of that conversation feeling like the guy from the old corny preacher story that's, in a flood, drowning on top of his roof, going, God, please save me. And a boat comes by, and he's like, no, God's going to save me. And then a helicopter comes by and tries to save me. He's like, no, God's going to save me. And then he dies like, where were you at, Lord? And he's like, I sent a boat and a helicopter. And so at that point, we were going to test out multi-site with Denton. And my question was all about missiology. If I was just creating butts in the seats for people who wanted to see the Matt Chandler show, I was not okay with that. If it was going to be a viable church that was reaching people and discipling people with the gospel, then I'm more comfortable with it, albeit still nervous. It's a tool at the time that was, nobody really knew how to use it, and everybody was playing with it. And so that quote they showed from me in the rollout is a quote during that season where everybody's playing with this new tool. And to be frank, nobody really knew what they were doing. They were just trying stuff.
Okay, you guys each get 20 seconds, and then I'm going to go to the bullpen. Where is it going, multi-site? Where is it going? And relatedly, what does that mean for the small church pastor?
I think it's going to continue to grow, and I think the small church pastor will be okay. I mean, it's if somebody thinks that a video can trump the anointing of God on a man to preach, they have a really small view of God. I mean, and so I don't think it's an either or. I think both church planting and multi-site will go.
Where's it going? What happens to the pastor of the average, smaller church?
I think you're going to see more and more and more multi-site. I mean, you're quoting the stats. I think there's a better fleshed out understanding of how to work it now and how to do so in what I believe is a correct biblical ecclesiology. And I think the small church pastor is still going to be there. He's going to be an agent of reconciliation in churches that are coming out of dark things, and he's going to become a campus pastor that hits 12 home runs a year and loves people well and shepherds people faithfully.
Okay, go to the bullpen. David Platt, our one campus representative. How many services do you guys have?
3.
So you're not anti-multi-service.
No.
Do you do video IMEG in the room?
Yeah.
Do you have video overflow room?
No.
Okay. Do you put your video of the sermon online or just the audio?
Both.
Okay, both in. So what do you think? Multi-site, viable? Yes, no, concerns?
Viable, sure. Like I wouldn't sit around and debate with you guys and say that it's not good or wise or certainly not biblical. I don't think it's unbiblical. As we dove into it and we saw a picture of church planting in Acts, so this was the journey we went through in our leadership among the elders, and we saw our gospels preached, disciples are made, and strengthened, elders formed, and then that's church. And elders who are the primary teachers among that body, who are living among that body, who are showing the gospel in action among that body, which I would say even right now in the mass, so we have in 3 worship gatherings, they don't get to see that as much, and so I think this is a problem even with where I'm at right now. But I think the ideal is planting churches where elders are teaching the word in that body and caring for that body, and the primary people that are caring for, the primary people that are being heard. I don't think we need to create expectations for these guys to be able to preach to huge crowds. I think there are tons of teachers all over the church that we can raise up and equip that can teach to smaller groups, and I want to empower those guys. And when we empower those guys, I think there's no end to the spread of the gospel, not just in this context, but in other contexts.
And would you, though, not see campuses as a form of church planting?
It depends on how those campuses are. Do they have primary teaching? Do they have elders at that campus? And are those elders the primary teachers of the word at that campus? If so, then call it a church instead of a campus.
But do you see any spiritual authority? Are you a functional cessationist or a continuationist?
I would be a cautious continuationist.
So you'd be a cessationist in denial. Okay.
No.
Or a continuationist lacking faith.
Or a continuationist lacking faith, Pastor James says. So within that, do you see any authority in an apostolic sense beyond eldership in the local church? Meaning an apostle that works between multiple churches, not just elders who shepherd a local flock.
I think primary authority needs to be with elders in a local body of believers.
But do you agree that there is an apostolic gifting today that causes someone to lead a whole movement or network of churches like a multi-site?
Certainly, I think God has gifted some brothers in a way that it can encourage many churches, but not in an authoritative way like an elder in a local church is.
Okay, and that I bring that up because that's an ecclesiological issue. If all you see in the Bible is elders, then you don't see the role for more of an apostolic leader across multiple campuses or churches. If you see more of an apostolic function, small a, not capital A, not writing books of the Bible, but a movement leader across multiple churches, campuses, congregations, then it does change how you have to organize your ecclesia.
And you view the apostolic leader as authoritative over those congregations?
Under authority to a body of elders, acting as an elder, but first among equals, leading a whole network, yes.
More bishop-like.
More bishop-like, but the words are so polluted and convoluted.
Sure.
You hear apostle, you think a guy in a white suit, his wife lost a paintball gun war. It's just, the whole word's just been destroyed. It's just been destroyed.
Sure.
And bishop, it's a guy in a robe.
Right.
So Pastor James, do you see yourself with the 10 Harvest campuses, and you plant churches too, you planted 70 churches. What role do you think there is for something beyond the elder of just a local church?
Well, first of all, I don't think that multi-site should ever be a substitute for the mandate to raise up, train, commission, and send out pastors. So every church, I'd be less concerned about how many campuses you have, and I would say, okay, Perry, you got campuses. Make sure you're raising up and training and sending out yourself. Because I think one of the big questions that multi-site raises is if we can reproduce the pastoral care, if we can reproduce the worship, if we can reproduce the location, and then we put ourselves on the screen, then by default what we're saying is the only thing you can't reproduce is me. And so then I think the litmus test for that is can you point to places where people that you've poured your life into are pastoring and leading autonomous, self-governing churches? I think that's absolutely essential. But if you are accomplishing that, then you can begin to say that multi-site is a kind of church plant, not a substitute for raising up and sending out Timothys, but it's a kind of way to launch a church. And I struggle, for example, in Chicago. Chicago is, the body of Christ is reeling with struggle about what to do with world-class cities. These big, massive cities that we have such a fractional saved population in. And I can just tell you that in our city, we've got pastors here that have planted independent harvests in the city of Chicago. But right now, honestly, our a campus strategy reaches more people sooner than our church planting city in this city. And so it's our predominant philosophy going forward, at least for our own city. More campus, give more resources. So many church plants are under-resourced. I remember when our church didn't even own a pencil. We started with 18 people, have nothing. Dreamed of a part-time youth pastor for 2 years. All right, so we'd have nothing. When a mega large church plants a campus, it's like rocking it from day one, resourced in every way. It's just hard for the church planter to compete with that. No wonder 50% fails. So,
Pastor Greg?
Well, I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. I think we do both. This last year, we started a live church, and as opposed to a dead one. We sent a guy up to L.A., and he planted a church. And then we've also been, we've started 2 satellite video only. Here's the thing that I think people don't realize. The greatest critics of multi-sites are usually people that have never attended one.
That's good.
I had someone say to me recently, she goes to our multi-site, loves it, trying to get her friend to go. No, I'm against it. Finally, she goes, now that's all she wants to go to. Because it takes like an hour, it takes almost 50 minutes to get in and out of our parking lot because of the way our place is set up. You go to the multi-site, there's like about 450 people at this one in particular. Everybody gets to know everybody. Hey, you want a pastor? There's a pastor, there's a pastor, there's a pastor. You come to the main campus, and we're spread out so thin, you have to look around to get a pastor. They actually get better pastoral care, develop better interpersonal relationships. They have all the advantages that our church provides, but with that small church feel that people like. But then I don't think that should take the place of planting churches, so I think it's all the above.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Stephen Furtick?
What's helpful to me about developing leaders within the context of multi-site church is that I'm able to raise up and train a lot of leaders who may not have a strong teaching or preaching gift, but they have a strong leadership gift. And I'm able to put them in a position where they can lead their campus, but they're not responsible for a 40-minute sermon 40 weeks a year. And it's actually enabled my ability to raise up more different kinds of leaders who may not have as public a gift, but they may be incredible leaders. Also, our first campus was within 14 months. And we started the campus because we were truly out of room to reach people for Christ. And within 30 days of finding another high school auditorium, we started a second campus. And it was very much pragmatically driven, but then I've kind of backed into a lot of the benefits. And one of them is, it is what you make of it, right? So if you want to use the fact that you're preaching on video screens at all these campuses as a means to create this celebrity culture, you can. But every time I talk about video teaching in our church, I try to make the point, it's not about me. And see, coming out of Charlotte, where it used to be, to grow a church, you had to buy 50 acres, build the biggest building that you could, put someone in, and one live man's live presence determines how big the church can grow. Now I'm able to say, it doesn't matter where I am. God is everywhere at all of our campuses. It's not about me. And we're able to train the people who watch the sermon on the video to be less consumeristic, to realize that it's not about what building, what campus I'm at. It's about, first and foremost, the gospel. And I mean by that, Matt, I mean the preaching of the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus Christ, faith in him, not the junk drawer version. But it's about that, and it's about the mission. And so we've actually used it rather than, I think a lot of people have the perception that it makes it more about the man.
Less about him.
It can be less about the man because you're constantly making the statement, I don't have to be in that building for you as a church to receive God's word.
Okay.
Man, where's my thumb? Where's my thumb?
That's good.
Thumbs up. All right.
Thank
So
you.
real quick, all the thumbs up. And I know I'm totally
You have not
outnumbered
done
on
one yet, David. Thumbs up or down, have you? Okay,
yeah.
we're going to give you a
He's gonna do
moment.
it right now.
Practice. Just practice.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Start negative. Start negative.
So like, I see what you're saying, what all you guys are saying, but you are still there via video instead of someone else. So you are saying somebody else couldn't do it there, right?
No.
No.
So
we might
somebody
be
else
saying that they couldn't do it as good.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, let me keep
I mean,
that.
let's tell it like it is. Aren't we? Do we believe that all gifts are equal?
No.
Do we believe that every preacher is as fruitful? Isn't there some 30-fold, some 60-fold, some 100-fold? So why am I going to put Joe apprentice to be 30-fold in 5 years up there if you can have something? If you can put something 60-fold up there, I mean, where's the economy? I mean, aren't we supposed to steward all this?
Yeah, I think somewhere along the way, if we're not careful, we in the 100 talent guys, we really crush the 10 talent guys, and which
That's
is
why
where
church planting is so important.
That's why I think it is a both
really
and. I
is,
mean,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
in Acts 29, Matt and I are in Acts 29, and there's 400 church plants. And a lot of those guys are small core grouping, struggling, slugging it out. We give, we serve, we fund. I mean, how much is the village giving to church planting this year?
I mean, I don't know. It's significant.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving, I think, 1.5 million. You're probably pushing $1 million,
Yeah, I
I mean, so it's a both and. So we're funding lots of core groups, and to me, it is a both and. You send out campuses, you send out church planners, and everybody makes their run because there's enough lost people for everybody.
Yeah, and I don't think that. I think that the idea that somehow Mark Driscoll has always been the guy that he is. I mean, we started with 18 people. I was the guy that was slugging it out. I was the guy that 5 years into our church, I don't have a story like Stephen Burdick has. 5 years into our church, we had 500 people. And 1 year we grew from 400 to 250. Like, I did all that. I did all that, all right? And in the trenches of refining your gift, the Lord is the test of our fruitfulness, and I would never refer to myself as a 60-fold or as a 100-fold preacher. But let's allow that there appears to be some significant fruit. God will test it in the end. And I just don't believe that I want the young guy who's struggling, I want him to go through the same things that I had to go through to refine your gift, to develop your gift. I didn't roll out of bed one day and start preaching to thousands of people. And I want the church planters that are here that we've sent out to go through that process. But I don't want to feel like I have to limit my fruitfulness in the most fruitful years of my life so I can prove to him that I want him to have a chance. Yes, plant churches, but I don't have to tuck my most abundant years of fruitfulness in so you can feel like I'm not suppressing you. I'm definitely out on that.
Okay, let's go to questions. Aren't multi-site preachers losing the value of being a shepherd? Now there's prophets, priests, and kings, right? This is our deal. Kings, systems, policies, procedures, dollars, real estate, stewardship, effectiveness. Prophets, Bible, theology, preaching, teaching, guarding the gate, theologically. Priests, loving, shepherding, caring, community, affection. And so this is the priest question. If you just have a lot of kings and prophets, guys who can make it go big and preach it real strong, does that not negate them being actually a shepherd, a pastor of people?
No.
Well, go.
No, I mean, listen, one of the things that I learned very quickly is my first church, there were 100 people where I served on staff. I was a part-time youth pastor, and I watched a pastor in a small Baptist church in the upstate of South Carolina. And that pastor, great man of God, you can't effectively shepherd 100 people. You can't. There's not a man on the planet that can effectively shepherd 100 people.
As far as knowing, loving,
yes.
leading, being invested, being involved.
I mean, I know the phrases, shepherds smell like sheep. I know all that. But if the shepherd is down with the sheep, then who leads the sheep? Like, the sheep starve to death because they're obsessed with one another, and that becomes a problem. So that's why it's essential for the shepherd to raise up shepherds within the body. The church isn't effective when the pastor ministers to the people. The church is effective when the body ministers to the body. Right. Because a church that's dependent on the pastor, you let that pastor, all these guys that say multi-site is personality driven and we're not a multi-site, you let their pastor leave and you watch what happens to their church. Boom, it goes down. And so the reason I'm saying that the multi-site model works so effectively is because I've got campus pastors now who, like Stephen was saying, they don't have to focus on preparing a message, which, by the way, it's freaking work. It's hard work. Yeah. They don't have to focus on that. They don't have to worry about that. Their job is to take care of the people and raise up shepherds within the body so the church actually can minister to one another.
Well, there's two things that I would say to this. One is to answer the question directly. If the primary teaching pastor of a multi-site church isolates himself to the point that he's not shepherding people, then absolutely he'll miss out on the joy of shepherding people. I mean, that's absolutely true. It's a huge leap, though, to take that idea and go, a multi-site pastor does that. And that's the leap that's being taken even in this question that's simply not true. I live a mile from our Flower Mound campus. I walk into that building. I know men and women that attend our church. I go to the hospital. Even though we do have campus pastors, we do have care ministers, we do have, so it's this jump, it's this, let me find what's wrong with it kind of positioning on this issue that's unhelpful. Because but you can do that in a non-multi-site church. I mean, you can isolate yourself as soon as your church is 600 plus, you can isolate yourself back to your books. I mean, man, I've known guys do that with a church of 60. And so that's not the multi-site issue. This isn't a multi-site question. Yeah. This is a pastoral shepherding question that could happen anywhere.
But isn't there a difference, though, too, between a sheep-focused shepherd and a flock-focused shepherd?
There's no doubt.
A sheep-focused shepherd is more of a pure priest who says, Joe's hurting, I'm going to go to the hospital. Flock-focused shepherd says, a lot of people are hurting, I need to train an army of counselors to make all the hospital visits.
Yep. Yeah.
And so just because you pastor a larger flock doesn't mean you're not doing shepherding, but you're doing a lot of shepherd training. I mean, that's where legitimate campus pastors, real elders, real deacons, real small groups, real community at the campus is absolutely essential. But I think I would argue then what that provides is then the pastors get a pastor. And that's what a lot of guys don't get. They're shepherding the flock. Nobody's shepherding them. Nobody's asking, how's your marriage? How's your sleep? How's your health? How's your kids? How's your soul? How are you? Because it's shepherd, sheep, and there's no shepherd for the shepherd.
Right.
And in the situation we've got, I still meet with rape victims. I still do hospital visits. I still do a certain amount of work with single moms and stuff. But at the end of the day, I really am most concerned about my campus pastors and certain senior level leaders, because then they're leading whole campuses with hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. And I want to be their pastor, because if I can make sure that, again, back to that more apostolic role, who pastors the pastor? I never had that. To this day, I don't have a pastor. I've never had a pastor. I swim without a lifeguard on duty. Now, some of my elders have come along to help and to serve and to grow in that area. But if we could build a church where, it's kind of a senior shepherd caring for shepherds who are caring for group leaders and counselors who are caring for the flock, then I think you can't say, well, this isn't a church that shepherds. It may not be a senior shepherd who's doing a lot of shepherding, but a lot of shepherding's getting done. Yeah. So he may not be going to the hospital 20 times a week, but those are all covered by people who love Jesus. So next question, internet campus. I don't even believe in that. Most can create one, but should we? What do you guys think of an online, like, Second Life, church, right?
Yeah. No.
Is there such a thing as a church online? Like I click for communion, I click for baptism.
I would say no. The gathering of the people of God is a mandate in Scripture, and that's not a virtual gathering. That's a physical, smelly pursuit of the Lord. It's not.
It would be a weird way to have a marriage too, wouldn't it?
People are trying it.
Yeah.
My opinion has, I've done a 180 on this, Mark. 2 years ago, I would have said yes, and we tried it, and that it just, I've had people say people are more honest online, and I'm like, oh really? Is that why their name is Auto Guy 165? Because they're so honest? And so I'm like, no, they're not. They're fake online, and so we tried it. And we tried it for about 9 or 10 months, and I finally came to the conclusion, you got it, what you said. Yeah, we tried it and it just didn't work. So I think now if other people are doing it, great, but I think you've got to meet together with a body of believers.
Okay, and I'm supposed to do a wrap at this point, and I would say a couple things. We at this point go on multi-site where, not to name names or be disparaging, some people I really do love and respect, met with them and they said, okay, we're doing multi-site church, you're growing. We were at 5 services at the time we'd been. At one time I was doing 7 services, 3 locations on Sunday, which was suicide. And they said, just go multi-site, man. It works. It totally works. And, I want something that works. But at the end of the day, I asked, okay, you're doing multi-site church. What's a church? So I asked a number of pastors doing multi-site. And I never got an answer. It was like, the great assumption. Well, we're two or more gathered, and that's a verse on church discipline. I mean, it's like, it doesn't have anything to do with anything. So I was like, okay, well, before we do multi-site church, we need to define church. And then whatever the Bible says church is, then when we do multi-site church, we need to do that in various places, but we need to do what the Bible says. So that led to writing a book and all that kind of stuff. So I think for those that are looking at multi-site, my first recommendation would be, make sure you have a clearly defined biblical conviction about a church and what a church is and what a church does. And then when you're reverse engineering your multi-site philosophy, you're thinking through, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do church discipline? How are we going to do sacraments? How are we going to do community and unity and love and leadership and mission and evangelism? And what will this require? Once you do that, though, you do have an opportunity to take the resources of an existing church, and if you do it like a church plant instead of an overflow room, it really can and does succeed. And this also gives us an opportunity. 3,500 churches in America are plateaued, closed, declining every year. 3,500 churches die and close. 80% are plateaued and declining. And it's a lot of the times because the person leading that is a priest. Really loves the people, but not a king who knows how to build it, and not a prophet who can proclaim enough to really gather a crowd and mobilize. And what we're finding is in some of those situations, you get a building and a good priest. If you come in with a king and a prophet, they can clean that place up, help get the word out, bring the people in, teach the Bible. Then that pastor is really happy, because sometimes for him it's 20, 30, 40 hours a week of sermon prep and theological study and laboring, and he can't get to the people.
Right.
He can't get to the people. Let me close this. How long does it take you to prepare a sermon?
A
week.
7-8 hours.
You?
When his podcast comes up, I just download that and it whatever.
Otherwise, a week.
But probably the same thing. Probably about 7 or 8
7
hours.
or 8?
Closer to 20.
20?
10, 12.
10, 12?
I would say 10 to 12, yeah.
8 to 10.
8 to 10. So let's say there's an average of
What about
10.
you?
2.5.
60 to 90 minutes from start to finish. But sometimes I say stuff I shouldn't. So, but you take, let's say, 10 hours a week, and for a guy starting out, he's at 15 or 20.
Yeah.
Let's say you're going to have 10 churches. You start doing the math. That's 200 to 400 hours a week of sermon prep, or 10 to 20, and then you're freeing up hundreds of hours to train leaders, be on mission, and care for people. So we'll give it to Jeff.